In this tutorial, we'll be creating this big to small logo effect in Squarespace 7.1 just with CSS. We're going to limit ourselves to this fully centered layout in order to implement the animation as smoothly as possible. But because we're going to be using only CSS, the final result is not going to be pixel perfect. If you need to be super precise in the positioning of the logo when it becomes big in your specific project, this approach may not work for you. Nonetheless, I encourage you to give this a shot and see how it works for you. Now, there are pretty much 2.5 things that you need to set up inside your header to be able to follow along. So here we need to have the logo in the center. So that means using the second to last option in here inside the header layout. And then you also need to have the fixed position option enabled, as well as the fixed header style set to basic. The other thing that you may need, and this is completely optional, and that is to set the height of the header as 1.8 viewport width. This is just going to stop any sort of difference in height when you're scrolling down the page using this fixed position option. Now, with those things out of the way, let's go ahead and hop onto the code. The first thing we need to do is find a way to target the logo element. I would personally recommend working with a container that has the exact size of the image. I'm going to go ahead and target this A element container, and then I'm going to be using header title logo just to make sure that I'm only targeting the A element within the logo area. So let's go ahead and grab that and go into our custom CSS window. And then the first thing we're gonna do is move it to the middle of the screen. Now, the way that we're gonna do this is by using the transform property and specifically the translate function. So let's go ahead and set that up in our code. We have transform, translate, Y, 45 viewport height. Visually, that seems to be around the center of the screen, so I think I'm gonna keep it there. We're going to resize it and then see if we need to adjust the position again. Now, to be able to make this logo bigger without affecting anything else on the page, we're going to add in another function, which is called scale. And with this one, we're pretty much going to tell the browser how many times larger we want this element to be. So if I use 10 in here, you can see that we end up with a really big cup. And looking back at the position, I think this pretty much sits in the middle of the screen, so we're going to leave it there. All right, so now it's time to snap back the logo into place in the header. And that is where the fixed option comes in. If we inspect the header element at the moment, you're going to notice that we have a couple of classes in here. But then if I start scrolling down the page, that purple highlight is telling me that something is changing in the HTML structure of that element. And that specific change that is happening here is that there is a class of shrink that gets added and removed depending on if we're scrolling down the page or not. That class is what we can use in our code to be able to tell the browser what to do when we're scrolling down the page. Let me show you how that's going to work. Right now, if we take a look at the structure once more, we can see again that we have the whole header container, right? And somewhere within that header container, we have our logo and we have the A element that is sitting within that header title logo container. So that means that our selector could look like this if we wanted to. So knowing that this is what we want or where we want the logo to be at any point, if we wanted to do something else when that shrink class is present, then what we can do is rewrite our selector slightly. So when the header has the ID of header and the class of shrink, we want the header title logo, particularly the A element inside it, to not move anywhere. So now if I scroll down, the transform stops. Now at the moment, this is looking way too blunt. Like you can see how it's just sort of like snapping back automatically. We don't see any sort of like sliding motion or anything. So to be able to change that, we're going to go back into the original code or the original state, and we're simply going to set in here a transition. I'm going to set this to all 0.5 seconds. This creates a smooth transition between the translate 45 viewport height and scale of 10 to none. Alrighty, that's everything that I have for you this time. Let me know if you found this helpful by giving this video a big thumbs up or leaving a comment down below. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.